Hey there, I'm Paul Kaltenbach, live at Hell's Kitchen, New York City. And you're tuned to International Radio Report, 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome, everybody, to the International Radio Report for Sunday, September the 15th, 2024. You're tuned to CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill, and we are here with you every Sunday with 30 minutes of news and information from the world of radio. We thank you for joining us. We'll tell you how to get in touch with us later on in the show. We will start off today's show with a bit of a sad note. We have an obituary for a member of our DXing community. We thank a number of the Boston area DXers group for passing this message along, including our friend John Fisher. The obituary is for Paul Graveline of Andover, Massachusetts. His call sign, Kilo 1 Yankee Uniform Bravo. Hams are mourning the loss of the assistant editor of the AMSAT Journal. As both an editor and contributor, Paul Graveline at K1YUB began his 7-year tenure as an assistant editor for the AMSAT Journal with the publication of the July-August 2017 issue. His deep involvement with AMSAT included being a member of the CubeSat Sim educational materials team that is part of AMSAT's educational relations program, using the CubeSat simulator as a learning tool. Paul, who was born in 1947, became a silent key on the 19th of August. His ham radio career had its roots in his activities as an enthusiastic shortwave listener, starting in 1960. 3 years later, he became an amateur radio operator with a special interest in CW. His love for shortwave listening was undiminished, and with a friend, he later assisted in the rejuvenation of the listeners group known as the Boston Area DXers. Paul was also coordinator for her Super Community Project, which seeks to spread a better understanding of space weather. I did have the chance to meet Paul a number of times over the years at different events, and I was very sad to hear this Boston DX group certainly had lots of comments and memorials to him on their IO group. So best wishes to the family and friends of Paul Graveline. So sad to hear that he has passed on.
Yeah, and so sad to lose, all the people that have so much knowledge about certain areas. In his case, he seems to be very, very good at everything amateur radio that has to do with amateur radio satellites. So
a number of the people in Boston sent me messages, and reading some of the comments, one of the things that really stood out is he used to host a pasta dinner around Christmas time at his home, and he'd prepare the whole nice big fancy pasta meal and have all of the DX friends over. And he also participated in a whole bunch of their de-expeditions that they did. They would go off to the shore of the coast up in Maine and a few other places and set up antennas and whatever. And I remember John Fisher telling me quite some good stories of good times they had on some of those de-expeditions, which Paul was involved in.
So we have some PPM ratings, some summer PPM ratings for the Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver area. This is by David Bray of the Broadcast Dialogue. So not so long ago, Bell Media announced the sale of 45 of its radio stations, shockingly declaring it's not a viable business anymore. Clearly, there are a number of believers remaining. Radio remains consistently popular with an average weekly reach of 83% for Canadians aged 12 and up. In-home represents 50% of tuning. Out-of-home represents 50% of tuning. We should note that for Canadians, 9% of radio consumption comes from AM/FM live radio streaming. Let's Forge On, the new PPM release from Numerous, completes the 13-week period covering May 27th, 2024 to August 25, and let's look at the 5 PPM markets.
So we're starting with Toronto, and the bragging rights at the top of the ratings heap go to CHFI, delivering a 13.4 share in the 12 and over listenership. Chum FM receives a nice bump and comes out on top with women 25 to 54 with a 16.3 share, up from 11.6. And with men 25 to 54, Boom 97.3 leads with a 12%, down from 12.4. Virgin Radio is out in front for males 18 to 34 with a 12.1%, down from 15.8. And Virgin is also out in front for females 18 to 34, topping the list at 16.4%, up from 15.7%.
We have Vancouver. CKNW grabs the number one spot for age 12 and up with a 12.2% market share of hours tuned, down from 13.2%. Taking the top spot for females 25-54 is Move 103.5 with an 18.8% share. That's up from 15.9%, followed by 94.5 Virgin Radio at 14.5%. CFOX holds the lead for a male 25 to 54 listeners, delivering a 12.3% share, down from 15.2%, followed by Rock 101 at 11.3%. Virgin is out in front for males 18 to 34 with a 13.5% share of hours tuned. When it comes to women 18 to 34, CFOX is number one with an impressive 26.7%.
Moving on to Edmonton, I guess not surprising, CISN Country takes the number one with 12 and over, posting a 10.2 share of hours tuned. Now Radio, that's the station that our friend Mickey Delmage is a listener to. He really enjoys it. They hold a top spot for females 25 to 54 with a 17.3 share. That's all the way up from 12.6. Now also tops the list for 25 to 54 male listeners with an 11.8 share, followed by K97 at 10.1 and Sonic at 10.0. For men 18 to 34, Now is out in front at 15.9, up from 15.5%, and CISN Country led females 18 to 34, delivering a healthy 22.3%, up from 16.4.
If we look at Calgary, CBC Radio 1 leads the way for age 12 and over with 15.1% share, down from 15.7. Star 95.9 is popular with women, taking the number one spot for females 25 to 54, delivering a 10.9%. For males 25 to 54, X92.9 rules with a 13.1%, up from 10.5%. X92.9 is also on the top spot for males 18-34, delivering a 16.3%. 98.5 Virgin Radio tops females 18-34, posting a 14.4%.
And finally, here in Montreal, it's a much different market in Montreal because we have the French and English stations pretty much balanced out. CHMP 98.5 is number one. At least for this period. We're waiting to see what's going to happen in this fall ratings, which will be coming up later this year, given some changes that are going on. But for the summer, CHMP is number one in adults 12 and over on the French side with a 21.4 share, down from 23.4. For 12 and over on the English side, it continues to be CJAD 800 number one with an unbelievable share, 31.6%, slightly down from 32.9%. CHMP is tops with women, taking the number one spot for 25 to 54 females in French, delivering 17.5 share. For females 25 to 54 on the Anglo side, the beat is way, as they say, out in front with a 32.4 share, up from 27.2. For men 25 to 54 on the French side, CHMP 98.5 is on top with 23.4 share, down from 24.4. And then for a male 25 to 54 on the English side, the rock music seems to dominate that age bracket for men. Chum FM number one at 20.8, down from 21.2. some huge numbers of shares in Montreal compared to some of the other cities where it seems things are a little more balanced out across the board. We notice Virgin Radio in many of the cities doing quite well with a younger audience. Now, those are mostly the pop and dance music types of stations. What's missing? We don't see Virgin Radio once again mentioned here in Montreal, where I would imagine that they're not on the radar again. And we don't quite know why, though, because if you compare them to the popular station of The Beat, they're basically doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
Same type of music. Everything's the same, yet one is so far ahead of the other.
What's also interesting here, they aren't mention it, but in the French newspaper where they have some ratings, when we look at the Francophone market for talk radio, of course, the HMP 98.5 is on top right now for the summer. But the second place was going to Radio-Canada Première Chaîne on 95.1. So they're quite popular also with the Francophone audience. Now, the really interesting part is coming ahead, is when we get the next rating for the fall. Because that 99.5 station, which was calling itself Weekend, changing to a talk format, will it create a distortion in the news talk format Francophone side of radio? Will it be able to steal market share from the others? Because that's pretty much what happens usually. If you get popular, you have to get that popularity from somewhere, and usually it means other stations are going down. So will it change anything? Will 98.5 just stay popular and stay on top? That will be very interesting to see the fall ratings.
Yeah, we see Radio-Canada, the French network, does so well in Montreal, yet the CBC Radio English in Montreal is not doing very well. And in many other parts of the country, there are some where CBC Radio does really well. But Montreal, as we said earlier, is a very different type of market because of the two languages. A definite interest in talk radio in Montreal. It seems to be predominant among both French and English.
And it is interesting to note that all of the stations that are showing up here all have some really good market shares. Yep. You know, compared to the other markets where the market shares is kind of divided among the radio stations, it seems. Here, there's a handful of stations that are just on top and really popular.
Yeah, it's very, very odd compared to the other major cities. Anyways, there are some ratings that'll come out for some of the other cities across Canada. We'll have some of those later on for some of the more secondary markets. These are the five major ones that they always look at in Canada. Our next story takes us to California, where if you've been following the news, they're having devastating fires throughout Southern California. This is a story that has a radio connection to it. Airport fire in Trabuco Canyon threatens broadcasting and radio towers on Santiago Peak in California. This is by Julie Sharp of KCAL News via Radioworld. As the airport fire in Trabuco Canyon continues to grow, as of last Tuesday afternoon, its movement threatened scientific, broadcasting, and radio communications equipment on Santiago Peak. The blaze grew overnight from 5,400 acres to 9,333 acres by Tuesday afternoon, with zero containment. The towers at Santiago Peak provide radio coverage over much of Los Angeles, Orange, and San Bernardino, Riverside, and San Diego counties. Equipment houses both the broadcast and two-way communications facilities on virtually every frequency band, including FM broadcast, VHF low and high band, UHF, 800 to 900 megahertz, and microwave. The Orange County Fire Authority dubbed it the airport fire after it started around 1 p.m. Monday near a remote-controlled airplane airport on Trabuco Creek Road. The flames quickly grew, burning through vegetation on the hillside to more than 5,400 acres within hours. Although growing in size, the flames continue to travel away from homes, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't think of this often. Communications towers that are in the region getting affected, and I saw some videos on TV of them actually toppling. So that could play a really major impact in all types of services, as they mentioned, not just radio and television, but public service frequencies, cell towers probably. So fires having a really dramatic impact on communications in California.
Yeah, when you get out of cities, actually a lot of the communication systems and towers are put atop a lot of little mountains or big mountains to extend their coverage. And I mean, most of the time it's, wooded area. They just create a dirt road to go up to fix things, but that's pretty much it. So if forest fire hits, any fires, these are vulnerable situations.
I'm kind of curious what a remote-controlled airplane airport is, though.
Trying to figure out, I was thinking of maybe there are some cases where you need to have surveillance, all sorts of things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I'd not heard that term before. So anyways, very dangerous situation, though.
So what's happening with our sun? Well, our sun is extremely active. It flared a lot this week and created a G3 class geomagnetic storm that peaked on September 12th. And auroras were visible everywhere, including to the mid-latitudes of the United States. And what's coming up next is maybe something that will be very similar, because we have a new sunspot that just appeared and that will be in the best position to send us some nice big solar flares. It seems that sunspot is really crackling with a lot of flares right now. There was one X-class flare, and there could be more. So conditions will be interesting in the coming days as the solar flares will continue possibly from either that sunspot or the other groups that are on the surface. Sunspot number 160, solar flux 201. And what's to look for this week is probably some interesting up and down conditions. But when things are quiet, dooching around, we are having some of the best propagation right now with signals coming from everywhere. Things aren't too flary, or when there's not too many geomagnetic storms. Even with geomagnetic storms, remember that there are different propagations. Sometimes, for example, the medium wave band will be dead from all the stations you usually hear at night from around you, but you might start hearing languages that you never heard on the M band, Spanish, or, get stations from Central South America. It's pretty surprising sometimes when these conditions change. But to witness all of this, you need one thing, and it's a radio, and you got to turn it on.
This is Rita Barrett from Harleysville, Pennsylvania. You're listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
So we have in our next story, Swiss Radio Day discusses FM fade-out. This is by T. Carter Ross of Radioworld. It's really happening. Swiss broadcasters are moving forward with the switch-off of FM transmitters. The FM fade-out was a topic of much discussion at the 25th Swiss Radio Day on August 29 in Zurich. Marco Derighetti, Director of Operations for SRG SSR, provided a look at the Swiss Public Service Broadcasters' plan to switch off its FM transmitters at year-end 2024. Back in June, SRG SSR made the commitment for economic and listenership reasons. According to the SRG SSR, around 80% of listening is happening via DAB+ and other digital channels. Along the energy efficiency and cost savings of DAB+ compared to FM, justify the accelerated switch-off. Derighetti was joined by Philippe Zano, president of the Union Romande de Radio Régionale, RRR, and Peter Schur, managing director of the Verband Schweizer Privatradios, VSP, and Juan Widmer from the board of directors of Unicom, who provided a look at the switch-off from the perspective of private broadcasters, commercial and non-commercial alike. The FM switch-off is being described as a fade-out because broadcasters in different regions and situations will transition away from FM between now and year-end 2026. For example, stations in the French-speaking western part of Switzerland plan to maintain FM operations until year-end 2026, in large part, according to the RRR, due to the strong competition from broadcasters from across the border in France. In contrast, Schurer said that about half of VSP member stations, which operated in German and Italian and Romansh-speaking parts of the country, plan to start switching off their FM transmitters in early 2025. He stressed that each station will make its own decisions about when to fade out its FM signals based upon what makes economic and competitive sense. So, switch off. Another country in Europe is going DAB plus pretty much. Once again, we hear a lot of comments. I had comments in one of the live shows we talked about it where there were some of the viewers concerned. They were saying that in the countries where they go through in Europe, where DAB plus is the only thing, lots of fade outs and lots of problems in coverage. But I guess, they want to move forward, and I guess somebody somewhere is selling them the digital format well enough that they want to move on. They say it saves energies and so on. It does, have advantages. That definitely is the case, with more content being broadcast through the same signal, even with little screens on these radios. But yet, slowly, Europe's moving away from FM, it seems.
You wonder, in a country that is as mountainous as Switzerland is, might be caught into valleys, or, the signal range of some of these stations is not going to be as great as it might be using other types of broadcasting. I guess FM is line of sight as well, so they've always had that sort of problem. But DAB is like it's on or off. There's no fading. There's no in between. Listening with staticky signal or whatever. It's gone if you're not in line with that signal. So I can understand a number of the areas wanting to sort of test it out for a little while and not do it all at once, just to sort of see how it all works. Our last story takes us over to Taiwan. Radio Taiwan International, a delegation, continues to promote exchanges in Osaka, Japan. This is by Mary Ann Sioco of Radio Taiwan International. RTI's president Chang Jui Chang highlighted the importance of shortwave radio, saying that shortwave has gained renewed attention due to the Russia-Ukraine war. He stressed that in the event of a crisis, shortwave radio will be crucial for Taiwan to stay connected internationally. Chang's response was made during a meeting organized by RTI's Osaka Listening Club. Chang, who is leading an RTI delegation, is in Japan to foster exchanges and strengthen international ties while promoting the voice of Taiwan. He's joined by board member Liu Sai-ju and International Language Division Manager Carlson Huang. The delegation arrived in Osaka on September 5th and met with the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office based there. Welcomed by TECO Director General Ying Che Hung, Hung observed that Taiwan-Japan relations have strengthened over the years and that Japanese media has become more receptive to Taiwan. He cited examples such as their prompt reporting on the Hualien earthquake and Japanese disaster relief donations. The group also met with the television and broadcasting departments of the Asahi Broadcasting Group Holdings Corporation to discuss collaborative effort for news and programs. The travel itinerary features a gathering with RTI listeners organized by the Listener Club, which saw a significant turnout. While the event was primarily intended for RTI listeners based in Osaka, it also attracted many devoted fans from other regions, including Kyoto, Kobe, Miyazaki, and even from as far away as Sendai. So nice to see that they believe in shortwave and they realize that in the event of any type of crisis situations, shortwave radio is going to be playing a really important part as far as Taiwan is concerned.
Yep, it's pretty cool to see a shortwave broadcaster saying, no, we it's very important we stay on the air and very important we broadcast. I think there are quite a few left that still think it's extremely important to be there. But unfortunately, some think otherwise. And it's I don't know, it's difficult to see the difference, who, why, and money talks. So a lot of them, that shut down, sometimes it's just money. But I think shortwave does have a future and is very important.
Interesting that he highlighted the Russia-Ukraine situation, but
yeah.
There's some neighbors across the strait that are not too happy about Taiwan even existing, and he does not mention China, and China certainly sees the importance of shortwave broadcasting.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
We start with the Nordic Amateur Radio Union organizing the Scandinavian Activity Contest, 1200 Zulu 21st of September to 1200 Zulu the 22nd. The aims of the contest are to provide amateur radio activity in Scandinavia and to encourage amateur radio communications between Scandinavians and non-Scandinavian amateur radio stations. The bands are 80 through 10 meters, and it is CW only.
There's the New Jersey QSO Party, 1400 Zulu September 21st to 0159 Zulu September 22nd, organized by the Burlington County Radio Club. Bands 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters only, CW, phone, and digital.
Another QSO party is being organized by the Texas DX Society, the Texas QSO Party, 1400 Zulu September 21st to 2000 Zulu September 22nd. All bands HF except for the WARC bands. Also, those 6 meter and 2 meter can be used, and it is an all-mode contest event.
There's the QRP Field, 1500 Zulu to 2100 Zulu September 21st, organized by the QRP Club of New England. Bands 160 through 10 meters. Modes CW, SSB, AM, PSK, and more.
The Fox City Amateur Radio Club is organizing Wisconsin Parks on the Air, 1600 to 2300 Zulu September 21st. It is major HF band 75 through 10 meters, as well as 6 and 2 meters. Modes are SSB, CW, and FM.
The Western Washington DX Club is organizing the Washington State Salmon Run, 1600 Zulu September 21st to 2359 Zulu September 22nd. The bands 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, and 6 meters. No contacts on the 60, 30, 17, or 12 meters are allowed. And the phone and CW modes are used.
And the final one for next weekend, it is organized by the Port City Amateur Radio Club. It is the New Hampshire QSO Party, 1600 Zulu September 21st to 2200 Zulu September 22nd, 160 meters through 70 centimeters. And the modes are phone as well as digital modes.
So, we're out of time.
Lots of events going on. We thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll participate in some of those ham radio activities. If you'd like to reach us here at the show, our email address is radioreport@yahoo.com. You can catch our show live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group has one new member this week. We welcome Martin in Amsterdam, and that brings us to 957 members. We invite you to join. Look for International Radio Report on Facebook. Our YouTube channel has over 1,000 subscribers, and you can listen to our shows stored on the YouTube channel at IRR on YouTube. And finally, our X account can be found at IRRCKUT. We have 46 followers there. We invite you to follow us on the X account. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week. Have a great week, everybody. You've been listening to the CKUT International Radio Report from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Hier ist die Deutsche Welle mit den Sendern in der Bundesrepublik Deutschland. This is the Deutsche Welle from Germany.